do the obligatory. Sorry, it's our game's mascot, and it's their first road trip. We're trying to figure out what to do on social media with it. Winning a pub quiz, or no, coming third in a pub quiz, sorry, is not part of the plan, but we shall see. Right, I'm going to try and rip through 45 slides at pace. Hopefully there's time for questions at the end. But basically, my name's Andrew. I'm the CEO of Spilt Studios, and I'm going to talk to you about... Oh, I've gone to the end. That's exciting already. How have I done that? Home. There we go. I'm the master of slides. And again. There we go. Here we go. Right. So a bit about Trash Goblin, which is the game that we're making for context. We're going to talk about our pitching experience, Kickstarter, the situation that's going on in the industry at the minute, and hopefully leave you with some concrete actions and positivity. Who in the room is an indie developer or a developer of any kind, game developer of any kind? Awesome. Okay, cool. And how many people in here have backed a Kickstarter in the last couple of years, just for a bit of market research? Okay, cool. Fair enough. Right. Well, hopefully it's entertaining where it's not informative. Yeah. We pitched to 76 publishers over 9 months with the game Trash Goblin, and we got to offers with 2, and we got contracts negotiations with 1, but nobody signed it. And I'm going to take you kind of through that experience and what it felt like and what we learned from it and what we did about it. But what is Trash Goblin? Well, it's Power Wash Sim for the RPG crowd. Who's played Power Wash Sim? Who hates themselves a little bit for enjoying Power Wash Sim so much? Come on, a little bit. It's so good, but it's like, really? Yeah, so we basically have this game where you play the Goblin, and you're in a little workshop, and people bring you bags of stuff that you chip away at, and then you reveal trinkets or maybe trash. You clean it up, you maybe upcycle it into new things, then you sell it to customers, and you invest that money back into your business with new tools so that you can do more things to those trinkets. That's the loop. That's why those appeared in a sort of circle. Aren't I clever? So, yeah, there was a time when there was no Goblin, however. It was the origin of the project, in some sense, was a student brief that we run with Anglia Ruskin University. We also do it with Abate, but every year, every sort of semester or 3, we give an industry brief. And there'd been an idea rattling around in my head that 3D Picross, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Picross or nonogram puzzles, but there was a marriage between that very satisfying gameplay and archaeology is a theme, and I thought that would just be kind of cool, but I don't think there's a market for that particularly. But it felt like a project that was perfectly suited for a team of students at the kind of end of their experience at university to make, and it went incredibly well, to the point where we actually ended up hiring 2 of the people off of that team because we were like, you've done an incredible job. And it kind of gave us some confidence in this core idea of there's something here, there's something about revealing these trinkets, these strange artifacts through chipping away at them that makes us want to play more of it and find out more about this game that was kind of a basic idea. But as anyone here who's familiar with a project that is at all creative, you have to kill your babies. I didn't really want to have a gif of someone killing a baby, so I went for this. Yeah, there was basically a point at which we took that core idea and very separately sort of spun up this project, and we rolled it into a fantasy IP with goblins, etc. that we've been trying to kind of give a boost to or kick something off in for a while. And we took it out there, and we have a Discord, and we went to shows in real life. EGX, things like that, and basically people were just bouncing right off the numbers. Picross is very number heavy. It's a logic puzzle where you have rows and columns, and the numbers in those rows and columns define how many squares in that grid you can or cannot chip away to reveal the thing. And I love them. I think they're brilliant. They're really satisfying. But puzzle games are a niche, and this is a niche of that niche. And basically, we ended up ripping it right out. So there's nothing left of this original idea, except that we got a couple of people who were brilliant to work with out of it, and it gave us the impetus to make something, and then that turned into what Trash Goblin is today. But it no longer has numbers or any form of puzzle or any real sort of skill-based gameplay, but that's a different talk. So then we went on the road pitching it. We spent some time making a prototype, and it looked really nice, and we were really confident in it. And January 2023 onwards, we had a short list of 20 publishers. And this is the thing, you're often told, do your market research, and that's the market of people who are going to play the game, but also the people who, if you're asking for money from them, they will be interested or have the expertise that's relevant to help you make that game and make a success of it. So we had a short list of 20 or so publishers that we were like, these people have published games in this type of genre or this kind of like tone of game. The fantasy is quite light and sort of like comedic in a way, and the budget of the game and the timescale and all of these things, just trying to figure out who's a good partner. So we went to the 20, and we were, doing that up until September. And in the end, we kind of went, screw it. Let's send it to everyone we can think of, because nobody was biting at that point. There was interest, and we'll get to that. But essentially, that's where we got up to these 76 or so publishers, and we were sort of like, what's going on? Like, this game seems to be like exciting people at shows. We have more than one video of a random stranger going, I'm a Trash Goblin, and it's like, this isn't just like some meme thing. We're not just hopping on, something's resonating. And the key art that I showed at the beginning and the way the game looks and plays was meshing, and we were just like, there's something here. So it felt very much like, we're out of tune somehow, but we don't understand why. And regardless of whether the other sort of 50-odd publishers who we thought maybe weren't a perfect fit liked that game or not, we thought it would do a really good job of showing us off as a studio, as a team, the kind of thing that we could do. It was a step up from the last game that we'd released. So there's always like a way of thinking about something as a positive, even if you're kind of going against the advice, as long as you kind of have your eyes on that as a target. There's always something useful to be gained. So our pitching sort of results, if you like. So we had 12 publishers at that point who were interested. This is still September. 6 of those went to like official, okay, we should have a call with our team and your team, and we should get to know each other type situations. And the average, the range of time till no was between 2 weeks and 6 months, literally 6 months, from like that first, oh, cool, okay, yeah, we'll check it out, to now we're not interested. And I mean, hey, if anyone here is plugged into any sort of business of any kind, that's a long old time to just be waiting for an answer for some business. So, it's not great. It's not all of them, but and we'll get to that one specifically in a bit. But we have a nudging thing. So basically, we have a tactic where at any point along the process of getting an email saying, "Hey, we're looking at it now," and then oh, we're actually quite interested, it's gone up the chain, and then let's have a call, and then let's. There's like key stages along that line, and each one of those we will nudge 3 times. And the first one's like, hey, you said you would, what about any info? The second one's like, excuse me, you did say. And the third one's like, I'm just going to assume it's a no at this point, and just let me know if that's not the case. And I'm being a little bit more sort of bold than perhaps I would be, but honestly, the third nudge, if you like, at any of those stages, to try and cut down that 6 months of like waiting, was very, very literally, like, very politely, look, it's been a while. You said you talked to us, you haven't, and we're just going to assume it's a no, so that we don't spend any more time or energy chasing you and annoying you. But get back in touch if that's not the case. That's fab. And a couple of times that actually kicked a few people into gear, and that's cool. But I think it's important that developers looking for money from publishers, it's very easy to be sort of stuck in this situation where the power balance is completely offset. And so anything that you can do to kind of like maintain control, I think, is quite important, and that's why I'm calling that specific piece out. Then the excuses. I call it excuses. I'm being, I'm an indie developer. Hopefully everyone here is like a little sort of like, yeah, the little guys. So basically there was always like a decent reason, right? They have a business, and either the timescale didn't match. So these are the people who, again, for context, who were like, we are interested, we're talking about it. They've spent time and money internally assessing the project, right? They're not just dismissing it. But the reasons basically fell into either the timescale doesn't match. So when we were saying we would end up finishing the development of the game doesn't work for their plan, or they weren't confident of marketing it. And both of those are reasonable on the surface, I get that. And like, why would you partner with someone who's basically just, we've never published a puzzle game, what do we do? Or a game with goblins in, who's the market? You don't want to. But at the same time, you could kind of read it as like, well, I mean, we're flexible and you're not even talking about the timescale. We've given you an idea of how long it would take for the money and with the team that we're proposing, but we could spread that out. We could shorten it. Like, what, let's have a conversation about it. And it rarely was a conversation. And then the marketing side, it's like, it's harder to argue with, really. Like it's like they either have the expertise or they don't. But a lot of the time it was actually, I don't know whether this was them being sort of a bit self-defensive, but it was like, we're not sure there's a market for this game. And you're like, that's not a statement I think they can make in any confidence, really. Like either they can believe they can or can't market it, I guess. That's an internal assessment they've made of their capabilities. But to say there's no market is a bit weird, and we're sat there going, no, but every time we take it, there's people yelling, I'm a Trash Goblin, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that's kind of a bit of insight into that sort of frustration, I suppose. But we got to an offer, right? Remember the like second slide, I think it was? Yeah, we got an offer. And you know, that meant that there was like contract negotiations and like there's 4 months of emails back and forth and builds with new features requested, or them saying like, it's not the classic trap of please add this and we'll sign it. It was more like, have you thought about this? And we're like, let's shift our priorities because we were going to tackle that game design problem later, but let's prove it now. Why not? Video meetings, paperwork, paying lawyers. Yay. Sorry if anyone's a lawyer. I do like lawyers. Some of my best friends are lawyers. Yeah, so that was, I mean, it's great. Like, this is like a real process. This is meaningful. Like, both sides are spending time and real effort, 4 months of it on getting to this point. Let's go. And then actually what they pulled out, right, during like literally like the third or fourth iteration of the contract. We were down to like this word here, that word there type negotiations. So it was 4 months of wasted emails and new bills and blah, 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 and paid lawyer time. I mean, everything except the paid lawyer time you can get back, right? Like there was value in it outside of that. And even that's experience. But yeah, it was a real kick in the nuts for the team, frankly. You know, we were kind of like, this is it. We've got there, like 76 down to 1. We're going to go, and then for reasons that, you know, it's not really worth going into, they pulled out, and those were sensible reasons as a business, and that's fine. But it was a real kind of down time, and this was sort of yeah, it was like August, September last year, and very frankly, you know, there was a Wednesday much like this one, probably less warm, where I was at the kitchen table, like with my head in my hands, crying, being like, I don't know what to do. I genuinely don't know what to do now. Like this was basically it. Yeah, publishers are the worst, right? Right? No, they're not. It's fine. But some publishers think so. Tim Budd is my new favourite person. He's the co-founder of Hooded Horse. They published Manor Lords, and not like last week decided to start talking about publisher-developer relationships. And I was like, this is perfect. Publishers are businesses that have expertise and skill sets and skill gaps, and they know things and they don't know other things, and you know they have to operate in a certain way, and that's fine. And so where I'm sort of being frustrated for hopefully entertaining purposes, you kind of have to understand where they're coming from when these things happen, and you have to take what you can. You have to learn what you can from those experiences. As long as you can survive, you can apply those learnings. But it was really interesting to see Tim say that it's fundamentally stupid to have recoup terms like these, and this is very industry standard. Anyone here who's not in the games industry, it is really standard for a publisher to basically recoup all of their investment before you see a single dime of revenue share from the game that you've made. And that's kind of done when you just, like, it makes sense if you've charged so much there's zero risk for you as a developer, right? Like, oh yeah, it's like 10 grand man month or something ridiculous, or 20 grand man month, and like all the contingencies in that. But that's not what happens. Like they push you to negotiate, and you kind of compromise this, that, and the other. So it's really nice to know that someone out there is doing something different, believes very strongly in that difference, and it just means, you know, models are being disrupted, and you know, last year was last year, and we'll get on to that. Another one from Tim, which I think was Monday or Tuesday this week. Again, the whole power balance is really easy to get confused by when you're going to look to a publisher for funding for a game. It's very easy to be like, but they published this hit and this hit and this hit, and it's like, yeah, and of course that's all you've ever heard about. Go on Steam, look at their back catalogue, look at all the games that you hadn't heard of that they published, and figure out how they handled those failures. Because everything about the relationship that you're building with a publisher is about protecting against failures and optimizing for success. So that's why a contract exists. It's not in case everything goes well, it's in case everything goes badly. And it's not that hard to find a person, a developer who's had a bad experience with a publisher, and like get them to spill the beans, right? Like it's a fairly small industry, but basically, this is incredibly smart advice from a publisher to developers, and I'm hoping that this sort of signals a bit of a change in how the relationships are built and work in the future. But we'll see. I'm not even halfway through, I don't think. So getting back to Trash Goblin. I keep saying this. So everyone really loved the game, the design, the visuals, like being a goblin, like it was resonating so well. Like what have we got? Like all of the publishers that we've ever spoken to, and then some have said no. Let's do a Kickstarter. It's either that or the company goes under. What's the worst that can happen? Luckily, we had been thinking of a plan B for some months, like since like summer that year. We were like, what happens if? And the if was always probably a Kickstarter. So we'd prepped a lot of work, but yeah, we've seen such a positive reaction in every sort of market. We call it a market. So even the publishers who were saying no were like, we really like these things. And it wasn't that like, oh, great, that means it's going to sell. It was that those chimed with the things that we thought we were confident in, right? So when they're saying the visuals are great, it's like, we think so too. And then this element's really great, this element's great. Okay, cool, yeah. This is all lining up with what we believe about this project. And obviously there's a lot of stuff we need to work out. But then that gave us the confidence to be like, but we also believe there's a market here. So okay, let's like run that through then. Like let's have that confidence. And so we were trying to learn from every time we showed the game to anyone, regardless of who they were. Anyway, so yeah, Kickstarters are a big deal. They're a lot of work. Yeah, that's what I mean by that. They're a lot of work. And not only were we sort of launching a Kickstarter, we were announcing the game, and so the pressure piles on. And so we basically spent 2 weeks stepping back from the game, going, what would we like this to look like when it comes out? And basically, yeah, did a glow up pass on the game and made it look amazing, so that we could have enough content for a trailer that made it look finished, that made it look good. And it wasn't just about the Steam page and the wish list, it was about the Kickstarter, right? Like we've got people coming to this game, theoretically, wanting to give money to a thing that doesn't yet exist, so we need to give them confidence that it does or will in some high quality form. And so it was just a lot of pressure and a lot of work. So we didn't just do one thing, we did two. We didn't have a choice though, so I wouldn't recommend launching a Kickstarter and a Steam page at the same time, but we managed it somehow. And even down to the fact where I did the VO for the announcement trailer, and basically the whole thing went incredibly well, lining up a joke. Nothing went wrong at all. Everyone loved everything about it. It worked out brilliantly. It was a necessity thing, and as of this morning, it's no longer on our Steam page. Yeah, oh well. I mean, the comment itself, I've got a thick skin, I've been doing this a long time, it's fine. But the 19 likes, like, seriously? Anyway, it's fine.
I mean, it was nicer than the Twitter comments.
It was nicer than the Twitter comments, that is very true, But 5 weeks later, we had 10,000 wish lists. It's like, right, amazing, we've done it. We haven't done it, there's still loads of work to do, but there is a market, it's demonstrably there. Like, this game wasn't a thing in anyone's heads, and then it was, and then they could wish list it to show their support, and then they could throw money at us for a thing that we may or may not succeed in delivering via Kickstarter. And 10,000 people were like, yeah, seems legit, I'd love to know when this comes out. It's like, okay, great, that was the last piece of the puzzle, the last bit of confidence that we needed to just like run at this thing. And that's what we did. And this was all without a demo. Meanwhile, you announce the game, you get 10,000 wish lists, you're like, aren't we cool and exciting? And then publishers are interested all of a sudden because, oh no, there is a market, there it is, there's the people we can market to. Okay, cool. Yeah, I get it, it's fine. And a bunch of them we hadn't actually contacted before, we didn't even know they existed. It's all grand, but I like to be sassy because last year was a whole thing. So for anyone interested in doing a Kickstarter in the modern day, it's a whole flipping thing. It is months and months and months and months of work, and everyone's always said that, and it's even harder now. Like, we are very lucky to be very close sort of business friends, I guess, with someone who is like considered the games industry expert on Kickstarter. They gave us tons of advice. We followed it to the T. It was still just a crap ton of work and pressure, and like new assets and a new trailer and new builds for that trailer, and it just like everyone was on it a lot, and it was close, but we managed it. But it's serious. Like, if I was to do this again, I would want a year ahead of it to be planning, and I would want 6 months ahead of it to be meaningfully working on it, and then you want like 4+ months of the Kickstarter page live as a landing page where people can essentially watch it for when the Kickstarter launches. It's not a thing where you're like, oh hey, we're doing a Kickstarter. It's now a product in itself. So you have to treat it like a product launch. Only if you're going from cold, it's just as hard as any product launch without an existing audience or user base, right? So like genuinely, if anyone wants to do it, do take that seriously. But it was really worth it because we found our goblins, and we'll get to that as well. So, I mean, for us, yeah, we needed the marketing and we needed the money, frankly. We had a little bit of runway, but we only really had 3 months when it came down to it to build awareness. When I was saying like the recommendation was like 4+, 5+ months to build awareness, we had 3. So we were already like, oh God, I hope this works. And yeah, there were dark times and dark thoughts, but you know, we got through it. Yeah, the biggest thing that we did was the demo, or the 3 demos. We launched the Kickstarter with a demo, with a new trailer. Both of those things got us coverage on a wholesome direct, which was very much our target audience, and all of that led to a good start to the Kickstarter, which led to a good continued Kickstarter campaign for us. But because we were in a position where we'd already done the glow up and we'd already like basically twisted our development process into something that supported multiple new builds for trailers, we were quite ready to have that be a demo. So, you know, we had a demo and then we could also update it twice across the month-long Kickstarter, which is quite unusual. It's quite hard to tell how much impact that had or not, other than that we did it and it was a successful Kickstarter. It didn't go gangbusters. You know, we beat our projections by a smidge, you know, but yeah, it was something that for us, it was, okay, without that, we'd have needed another hook, I think, to really make ourselves stand out. Part of that was maybe fighting with Christmas, but at the same time, there's a lot of people not doing a lot over Christmas and not wanting to spend any money. And there's this cute game, and we did like a Christmas dress-up version of the demo. So there was like, you know, baubles and snow outside and all this kind of thing. Anyway, it was interesting. It was good. It was a lot of work. We were set up to do it, so we did it. I wouldn't recommend everyone does it, but maybe find something that you can do that sort of brings that kind of attention. And then graphs, everyone loves a graph. So here you can see some of the key sort of moments of coverage across the Kickstarter campaign. You can see where we crossed into like the success. So for anyone who doesn't know, if you don't raise all the money you've asked for in Kickstarter, you don't get any of it. So it is quite stressful. And yeah, like Christmas was in there. Look, that was an interesting few days of not supposed to be checking social media or anything. But it went pretty well. We hit a lot of the markers. I think it's something like if you get 10% in the first 12 hours, that's a marker, and 50% by the halfway point, that's another marker for success, etc. So it was smooth by what people were telling us to expect, but living it was a different thing, and I'm glad it worked out. And then similarly over the same period, you can see the wishlist activity on Steam. So this is those people just going, oh, I like the trailer, yeah, reads well, I'll show my interest, and then when it comes out, I'll get sent an email by Steve, basically, is what happens. So you can see the biggest spike there was at the whole launch, but we managed to get some really good coverage from some really big YouTubers, and then it sort of carried on. The Games Radar one was a complete, like, oh, someone just randomly picked it up, and they weren't on our list of people to target either. Games Radar is a decently sized site, but didn't have any idea. And then it turns out, after the fact, we have a few other friends and developers who we've made through Kickstarter who also ran them, went, oh yeah, we should have said Games Radar, really, really good. You should definitely get them. So that was lucky. And then there's a little spike there, which we have no idea about. It wasn't a demo, I checked, but there you go. So, and then even more, because we're even more successful now. We've got like 2,000 people interested on Kickstarter who've given us money for a game that doesn't exist yet. And we've got all of these wish lists and stuff, and so there's a bunch more. But also interestingly, we shared that info in a newsletter that goes around the industry, and we got someone directly ask for an introduction to us. Actually, there were 2 directly asked for an introduction to us from that. Someone backed the project, like early days, one of the highest backers, and then it turns out they worked at a publisher and they were basically like keeping an eye on things, and it's like, cool. But yeah, so I mean, look, you never know. And after this point, we decided that we were going to self-publish, but it wasn't as easy as like me standing here going, "Here, publishers, they don't know what they're doing, and they're all over the place." It was a bit more complicated than that. And then just a note about the things that surprised me. It's not huge numbers here, but the idea that we just sort of allowed people to keep giving us money for the same stuff, even though the Kickstarter had ended. So through Patreon and through there's the supporters and the shop that you can now do on Patreon. And it was like, okay, we just did a subset of the rewards for Kickstarter, and people keep giving us money. And again, it's not life-changing, but it does all add up. And these are not just people giving us money; they are invested in the success of the game. They are our super fans. They are the people who will help us get the word out and get other people excited. So they're very, very valuable. It's great. So, dun dun dun. This is our own internal "this is fine" emoji. So it's been a bit of a year, isn't it? A bit of a 2 or 3 years, actually, when you look at the stats. So we look back at 2023 and we go, rather than thinking, man, we were all in that mess of a business and wasn't it horrible? I mean, that is the truth still, but I'm so proud of how we managed to work our way out of it, and make no mistake, it was just hard work. Seeing what's happened to the industry, we were feeling those effects. We didn't know that was happening. We're fairly plugged in, but not so plugged in that we weren't amongst all the people in sort of September, October going, wait, they're closing who now? It's just been crazy, and essentially this has been something that's brewing for a while. So all of those rejections, a percentage of them were definitely just because nothing was getting funded at all. So even when we were but it seems like it's really popular and maybe a kind of a slam dunk, and we're doing it for pretty cheap when you think about it, and it wasn't falling on receptive ears. It was more that those ears were stuffed under a pillow, and the owner of them was crying because the industry was in a shit show and no one was giving anyone any money anywhere. So it was an interesting time, but looking back at it, it was okay, fine. We did pretty well considering. Does anyone here remember the indie-pocalypse? It's come up a few times. It's my favourite word because it's usually rubbish. Yeah. I'm not sure it's rubbish anymore. This is getting somewhere. I'm sort of leaning into it a bit, but there's so many games that you can go and play on. Let's just talk about Steam. There's thousands and thousands of games that are all really good, that all run on your computer right now, that are probably 50% off right now. So why would you buy a new one? Especially when there's only so many genres and styles. You want a fantasy base building game? There's 20 really good ones. So if I'm going to make a new one, how am I going to compete with that? That's mad. That's really difficult, and that's a problem that hasn't really existed in this industry, certainly. And it's something that we're really grappling with. And it's not we're grappling with it now. We just realised it recently. It's something that we've been grappling with for the past 5-6 years, as we're all throwing content into this shelf that will take all the content. It will never collapse. No one's ever going to not be able to buy your back catalogue. If you've got a back catalogue, that's great, but maybe you don't. Anyway, there's more every year, and there's all these layoffs, and these layoffs and closures mean more people trying the indie thing, and then those indies mean more games, and then more games means what? What do we do? What does that mean? How does that work? I don't really know, but I've got some ideas. This guy, I'd never heard of him, but this was very, very interesting. He's CEO at Narwhal. They're an accelerator program, and a lot of very smart people shared this on LinkedIn, this post that he did, this analysis. And I'm not saying it's a perfect analysis. There's a lot of things that the underlying data, you could argue, but fundamentally, let me translate this. I had to write it down. 4 years ago, you could expect your premium game to enjoy 50% more players in its first month than you can today. So just as a baseline, that's quite tough. And also, 4 years ago, I don't know, you're probably still using the same business model or approach to your business model that you were then, probably. Not all of us have got time to completely reinvent. And again, this is a new problem. This kind of thing is just becoming tougher and tougher. And it's not just the amount of games, it's the amount of games that are games as service, the games that demand, oh, hey, am I going to play this new thing that I have to learn the controls for and that none of my friends are really playing, or shall I just hop on Fortnite again? And that's fine. That's valid decision, right? I just want to switch off and have fun sometimes, and that's cool. And sometimes I want to dive into something new. But this is all adding up to a bit of a sticky problem, right? And we have to figure out a way around it. So it's fine. Hopefully. yeah, even the streamers are the streamers, the content creators, the influencers. They're feeling this too, right? I mean, this guy has like nearly 500,000 subscribers and 25,000 videos. Like, he's prolific, and he's sat there going, "There's too many games. I can't cover them all. Like, this is absurd. What are we supposed to do?" And their livelihood is based on trying to figure out what's a hot game as much as the developers is. We've got to figure it out ahead of time, and then they've got to figure it out after it's come out. But it's essentially the same thing. So, like, we should be listening. There's just not enough money or time or audience, right? So, like, this is, again, it's all fine. And when articles like this come out the day before you do a talk like this, or maybe the week before, but, like, spoiler alert, the UK is not a lower cost region. None of it is. Like, some of it is in relation to itself, but on a global scale, it is not at all. So when we're trying to rebuild this industry of ours, and companies are hiring and building teams, they are probably not going to be doing it in the UK. They won't be doing it in France or Germany or America either. But, like, okay, how do we adapt to that? What challenges does that bring? And I know that this is kind of getting a bit like, it's fine. But did we just basically do this to ourselves? Did we just go, yay, making games is so much fun, and it's like easier than ever now, and like look at the market that we can do, like reach with just like no effort. Oh, it's amazing. And then we're like, oh God, what have we done? I don't think so, not really. I'm sort of trying to belabor a point, I suppose. All of these things, like, realistically are opportunities as well. So as a studio making a game and with no other kind of consideration, you can build a direct relationship with your players, and that's something that, like, only has really happened in the last sort of 5-10 years in our industry. That's amazing. It's a superpower, and every industry and every, especially creative industry, wishes they could do that. If Netflix could get you to, like, immediately start watching something because they've just pinged you a DM, they would, right? They try to. It's called a newsletter, coming to Netflix. It's like, I don't like that. We can publish to the biggest markets or the smallest ones. Like, you can find a niche. You can publish in every market on the planet right now, basically. Like, anywhere that they're spending money on video games, you can make a game and release it there. And that's bonkers. That is, like, on a scale that doesn't make any sense. It's hard to wrap your head around. And we can find and work with global talent. So to my sort of previous negative point, like, just because Ubisoft and EA aren't going to found a new studio over here in the next, like, 5-10 years doesn't mean, like, you can't find some amazing experienced people who've got the last 40-50 years, like the entirety of the games industry's history as an industry, and use that knowledge to then, like, build something exciting and get people from lower cost areas of the world to help you build that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. That's an opportunity right there. And we can do all that without relinquishing control, because publishers, they even say themselves, they're not really in sort of unison about the best way to do business, and some of them are going out of business. Like, we're all in this mess, and we can all build ourselves out of it. But you just don't have to relinquish any control anymore. You don't have to sign bad contracts because of all of the above. And you don't have to share any upside. Like, you can just make the decision or build your business around whatever model you want. I know we know indie developers who basically are like, oh, I publish on Steam reluctantly. I much prefer to do it through my website, because all they pay is the 3 to 5% of the card charge, or whatever it is. Anyway, so we found our goblins, and here's some proof. So we announced that we'd sort of semi-publicly said that the game was going to come out in, like, June, July, and we'd always been loose and careful with the language. But, people have paid money, given us money for this thing, and we sort of said it was going to come out here, and we had to change that for really good reason. But we had to change it, and I announced it, and then it got 30 likes, which is more than that comment about my voice acting. I mean, that's just, there isn't a down button. There's no down vote on Kickstarter, right? But then, not just that. Like, in our Discord, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, cool, thanks for the update. It was like, look, you guys should take the time you want, and this is an audience we've built with direct communication, with not working with the publisher. We are talking to them, we are nurturing that. They have given us money, they're invested, they're excited, etc., etc. It's wonderful. And if you can put yourself in a position to do this, please, please, please do it. And there's basically no excuse. If you've got, if you're making a Steam game, get on Discord and just, like, start working it and just start getting people playing it. There will be fans out there who are as nice as this. I mean, we are a wholesome game, so we have, like, a wholesome community. It does make sense. Yeah, I did have to honestly share this though, because in the same responses, there's people going, "Yeah, it's fine because I've got like a million games to play anyway, so like whatever." And I'm like, "Oh no, that is the problem though, isn't it?" I just sort of had 5 slides ranting about that. Oh no, so you know, it's not all solved, but there you go. I mean, interestingly, Trash Goblin, 12 people in the UK making it, and it's like, in this person's head, they're like, it's the same time that I dedicate to Final Fantasy XIV or Elden Ring, and you're like, oh no, we are competing with them, aren't we? That's interesting. Anyway, that's for another talk. So everyone loves numbers. Numerophile, don't worry, it just means someone who loves numbers. So that's where we're at right now, and it's all very exciting. And as of tomorrow, the game is going to be in another Steam event, which is really exciting. So I think we can all solve the problem. I'm not saying it is solved. I think it's solvable, or at least addressable in a way that means something for you and your company and your business and your life. And here are 4 things you could do. Thomas Bido is wonderful and is the Kickstarter expert for board games or video games. Chris Zukowski for just marketing advice and Steam wrangling. And then Trash Goblin's a really cool game that, I don't know, you should probably just go and have a look and wishlist it. But you can find your goblins like we did. And then here are some QR codes spaced out enough that hopefully they all work with some of the stuff around that. And 2 of them are longer Reddit posts, the basis of which formed this talk. Thank you very much.
How many questions for Andrew after that? There's a few.
Hi Andrew, great talk, really great talk, loved it. Why 80,000? Why not 2 million? Why not 200 billion thousand? Like, what made you pick that Kickstarter number? What were you projecting in the costs, like your outgoings? Were there any other incomings that weren't Kickstarter? Did you already have like a pot of money that you knew would contribute to that?
So some of that is in, you should go to the Reddit post, but the quick version is we aimed for roughly half of what we thought it would take to make the game. It's like a public secret that no Kickstarter ever is like the amount of money you need to make the game. Like people, like that was one of the biggest things of going in. It's like, really, we can ask for like this? Like clearly it's like a lie. And everyone's like, no, but everyone's in on it. It's fine. It's just enough to believe that you will then do more with the money. It's very strange. So that was part of it. And we then sort of like massaged it a little bit, sort of to a round number for reasons, you know, like psychology, like people like round numbers, that sort of thing. And then we planned around like a stretch goals. Like if you beat the amount that we go for, then there's like a raft of things to unlock, and it's kind of like a gamified sort of situation, which we got through some of it, and that was cool. But it just came down to a balance between what we needed, what we thought we could get, and then like that was kind of heavily influenced by the audience that we thought was going to come and be interested, which was essentially 0, because this like nobody had heard of it at the point that we were planning the Kickstarter. So we had to assume like this is the least. So it was very conservative, and luckily, because it was like, you know, we squeaked by.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, what sort of considerations were in mind when publishers were coming back to you after having interest, and sort of whether it's going to self-publish or going
So the actual decision honestly came down to self-publish or not. Came down to we were chatting to a bunch of indie developers, some of whom had gone with publishers, some of whom had gone with agencies, and some of whom had just fully self-published. And all of the ones that had gone, the other 2, the not self-publishing, said, "Oh, I just want to make the game. I just hate all this marketing crap." And I really like talking to groups of people, so I genuinely really enjoy talking to the customers and figuring out what they like and don't like. And I have like I'm all right at it for someone who's never been trained at it. Let's put it that way. And that puts me like in that skill set like that differentiates us. And so I'm sat there going, I kind of just be like there annoying the person whose job it is if we handed it over to someone. And so why don't we do it? You know, like, and that way we don't have to share the money, right? Like there's no rev share. But when they were coming back to us initially, it was very much just you know, because we've gone through the ringer, and like some of them came back and were like, "Oh, hey, this game looks cool," and it's like, "Yeah, I emailed you about it 4 months ago, and you never got back to me." And look, everyone's inboxes are a nightmare. I get it, but there's still a childish bit of me that took a lot of satisfaction in that. But never officially. Oh no, we're recording this. Yeah.
No, sorry, is it someone there? Sorry. No, I was just double checking. I'm just talking on behalf of my colleague from South Africa. He's doing a weekly demo reviews that I help write on now and again. And he just wanted to say thank you for making such a great game. And you know, if you ever want to check it out on Adventures in Indie Gaming, we really appreciate your work. And I'm glad that I've known the history that you've gone through here to actually create the game, because it's really good what you did. And it really ties in what you were talking about your last slide with like the low costs and other places, because sometimes in South Africa they don't have the live service or the connections to compete in Overwatch or Baldur's Gate or anything like that, or the money for that matter, because of the monetary value. So I just want to say that it's great and we really enjoyed it. And I'm glad that you actually came to this point of actually creating it. So
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
Andrew.
Thank you. Well, big up the indie scene in South Africa, because is it Free Lives made? It's calling out like the famous one, but they got published by Devolver back in like 2014.
Yeah.
Broforce. I know they put a lot of money and effort into building like I think they even literally built a house where indies could go and live and like work as like a kind of like a co-working space, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, like it's just great. And we are a global industry. It's really important to like share and support each other. So yeah.
For that.
So amidst all the rejection, how did you keep yourself sane and actually have the faith to continue doing this?
I mean, I love a cocktail. I really. Oh crikey! Well, look. So the team that I work with are amazing, and like, I just feel really, really lucky to work with them every day. Like every challenge is like they're just brilliant, and
So you kind of
that's
lifted each other up.
that was it. But like honestly, like there's an element of being like the boss and trying to protect in some way. Like you don't want all of this stress that I'm feeling to land on them. It's not fair, and it's a distraction in some ways as well. You know, some of the team are quite relatively junior, like their first or second year in the industry and that sort of thing. So it was quite difficult to balance that in a way, whereas normally you could just kind of like lean in. And certainly a lot of the seniors like Simon and Steve and a few of the others, like, you know, we've been through the ringer, like we've all gone through this a few times and we can kind of share stories. But it's the people around you and yeah, like my partner Colette and family. It's very like expected answer, I suppose. There isn't really a secret source to it, but just talking about it helped so much. And sometimes you didn't want to, and then you had a really good martini, and then you did. So, you know, yeah.
I've got three, so I'll go back to this bit. That's what
What was I going to say? Did you... No, lost it.
Would you do three?
Yes, no, that's it. Did you...
We did, yes.
Yeah, thanks for that talk, man. It was really insightful. Thanks for sharing the journey and that as well. It's interesting. First question, so do you feel having a Steam page added to the Kickstarter, or do you feel like once you had the Steam page, you got that interest in the Kickstarter generated, you linked it onto the Kickstarter, it built hype and so on as well?
It was both at the same time. So like a game from a nobody studio, like we've been around for 14 years, but we haven't had like the hit to point to, right? Like we haven't got like, oh look, believe in us because of this game. So, you know, essentially starting from scratch with the game and the Kickstarter, and we're long past the point where a Kickstarter for a game is newsworthy. But both of them, like, oh, with the trailer, oh, and it's sort of debuting like in some association with the Wholesome thing, like anything we could do to signal boost at the same time. So, like, there's the dream of like, oh, we could just like release a GIF and it'll, you know, go viral or whatever, and that's fine if you've got an enormous audience. That improves the chances of that happening. But we didn't, so we just have to, like, every time we're trying to talk about anything, we try and line as many moments up as possible to make as big a splash as possible, and just kind of hope. I think that was probably borne out with the Games Radar thing, for example. Like, they probably wouldn't have heard about it unless, you know, all of that landed in their inbox at once, and then the subsequent success, maybe they were looking at it, keeping an eye on it. I don't know, but yeah, it's just make as big a noise as you can, and by hook or by crook.
If you want to go 2 more, we'll go to the front, and then after that, I'll ask you guys to find them afterwards. Get a little apologies for that, but yeah, finish up those 2.
So what do you can attribute the so 70k in like a month was like December 2nd to January the 9th or something, right? So what do you contribute that sort of growth and contribution to? Was it quality of the pitch? Was it the demo that you gave? Was it enough to kind of like live off your core team or live comfortably? Was that kind of enough in that month? And what do you attribute the success to?
So it was enough in combination with like the runway that we'd already had, and since the Kickstarter, we also managed to get the UK Games Content Fund funding, which is around about the same amount. So that was not something we were planning for. We were hoping for. It was it was a thing we toggled on and off, but we couldn't plan for it. It was just about enough to sustain us without that. And realistically, so like that, you took specifically like that last kind of boost, that last kind of peak. That's like a thing for Kickstarter, and it's like this point of frustration for everyone involved, because the whole point is, if you don't get all the money, nobody gets charged. We don't get any of it, and you don't get charged on your credit card, but people still wait. They're still like, I'm not sure I should back it. And it's like, well, if you back it now, the number goes up and more people will see it, and then they'll back it, and then it makes it more likely to happen, which means you'll get the value that you want out of it. Like, and none of that happens if we fail. So you could like, please just back it now. But people just wait, and then that last kind of peak, they go back to it, and they're like, oh, it's like 90% there. Sure, why not? And then it starts to happen. But it's just this really weird thing. Not annoying at all.
So you had day jobs as well, right?
Our day job was just carrying on making this game. Yeah.
Last one. I've toned you down a little bit now. You seem like a nice guy, but I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't ask this, right? So, do you feel it's somewhat contradictory to talk about diversity at your studio? One on your website, you seem to generally want to discourage like white people from joining, like getting a job there as well. I know we're in like 2024. We're in like in tech companies. There's a whole trend of having white guilt and all this shit, basically. But I work at like the biggest games company. I couldn't imagine putting that in like my job applications. Do you think it's not going to cause resentment to other races by having that sort of thing?
We have had plenty of white folk email us and complain, and I'll leave it at that. I think. Yeah. And I love that I'm not at a big company and that I can put it out like that. Yeah. But good on you for asking. Like, genuinely, that shit needs talking about. It needs talking about.
Yeah. Reversed a little bit now, but I have to kind of just see like what was the thinking. But
I appreciate it.
Yeah, last one we did front there, and then anyone else does have one, ask you guys to find Andrew after.
Yeah.
Escaping me, it's actually, it wasn't did you, it was do you. Do you have any theories for why the publishers didn't want to, thought there wasn't a market? Or did they tell you?
They didn't really tell us. Yeah. That's one of the frustrations of that whole relationship, is like, okay, no, cool, but why? Just why? That will help everyone, surely. So the theory is, since we took the puzzle out, you wouldn't believe the amount of people who asked us to put it back in. And that's because they're coming from but where's the video game? Right? Where's the challenge? Where's this, like, the risk reward? And we're pointing at like a little to the left, selling like millions. We're pointing at Power Wash Sim directly, going million seller, no gameplay per se. Like, their whole vibe was low impact, low stress, chill out, play the game at your pace. The whole game was like that, and we're like, there's clearly a market for this.
I remember the game, there's one Steam where it's like a Zen thing where you like type straight around.
Zen Bound, is it? Something like that?
I mean, two of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Just painting a bit of wood by wrapping a bit of string around it. All of that stuff. And they've broken out, and there's a huge market for it, because there's a market for anything on Steam right now. That's the thing. It's so big, you can find a valid market and make a business around it. And publishers are just slow. They're big. They're companies that take a lot of turning, and they're just not caught up, really. If you do a bit of googling around how long it took Power Wash Sim to find like publisher support and that sort of thing, and same thing. Hopefully we're not regretting it. Hopefully the niche sticks around. But we feel like we're on. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hey.